So, welcome. Thank you guys for coming. And I'm going to give you a bit of a spiel about what we're doing today, and then I'm going to introduce the chairman of the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation, and then we're going to get started, okay? So, the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation is a private charity that focuses on the needs and advocating on behalf of those that suffer with mental illness here in Bermuda. The foundation has been in existence for well over about 27 years? 23 years. And our primary remit is to provide adequate living accommodations for those that suffer with mental illness, as well as education within the community. And part of that education has been to educate the youth of Bermuda. So some of you may remember us coming into your schools and doing different sessions within the schools, and that's always great and fun, and you guys have always participated. But one of the things that we wanted to do was give the teens of Bermuda an opportunity to share their thoughts about important topics that affect them. So we as the adults, we're gonna take a step back, and we're gonna let you guys tell us what you think about certain issues that are happening in Bermuda. So Teen Summit is based on an old TV show, and it's so funny I'm saying it's old, because I feel like it was just yesterday. It's based on an old TV show that BET used to do. Everyone familiar with the BET network? They had a show called Teen Summit, and basically it was ran and operated by teens, and teens basically took over with production and with hosting, and they gave their input about topics that was affecting them. So taking that same concept, that is what we're gonna do today. So we have our teen host, I got my Quinn, and D, I'm bad with names, so we renamed him D, and we have Kiki up here. I want you guys to give them a round of applause. Awesome. So there will be cameras rolling, this will be recorded. When you do speak, and I hope everyone has come to contribute to the conversation, we want to hear from everybody. You do not have to look in the camera, but if you like to, you're fine as well. But just stay focused on speaking and getting your points across, okay? Anyone have any questions before we start? Everyone ready to speak? Awesome, okay, so I'm gonna introduce Mr. James McDonald, the chairman of the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation.
Thank you, Jody. My role is very limited here today. I'd like to welcome all of you here, and in particular, the Junior Minister for Disability Affairs, Tanae Furbert, JPMP, and also Michael Dunkley, JPMP, for attending. I think that shows their concern and interest in this subject. As Jody said, I'm chairman of the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation, which sounds grand, but really means all I try to do is get people to meetings and come and talk to us about things at our board of directors. So I like to think that's important. The foundation has been active over the last couple of years in a number of areas, which has been important. One of those has been to outreach into the schools, and we've seen how interested young people are in the subject of mental health and mental illness. It is something that is quite pervasive everywhere, but I think for a long, long time has been ignored to everyone's detriment. It's an issue that we all need to look at. Probably all of us have been affected directly or indirectly, either ourselves, family members, friends, relatives. And so it's important to take a look at this and not to try and sweep it under the carpet. So I think today is a very important day to hear what you as young people have to say about the issue of mental health. And I like to call it mental health as opposed to just mental illness. That's an aspect of it, of course, but mental health and how to deal with people who suffer from mental illness, which can cover, of course, a broad range of conditions. So we look forward to hearing you today, and I know you will contribute well. And if I can stand up here and say something, I'm sure all of you are able to talk as well. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, so we have one volunteer from each school that's going to be a part of what we're calling our solution team. Now, if you did volunteer, can you just stand up for me? Awesome. Okay, great. So in a minute, you're going to be asked to step out with our professional over here. Wait, so you see her. And she's going to help guide you on a topic that we believe we need a little help as adults. So hopefully you can help us out because we don't know what we're doing when it comes to this. So we're going to have our host now take over. Ms. Quinn's going to step up and do her thing. She's going to let you guys know what solution you're going to be working on, and then you will step out, and then they'll bring you back in when it's time to hear. Okay, so Quinn, let's give her a hand.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Jones, as you know, and I attend Cedarbridge Academy. Welcome to the Teen Summit held by the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation. Today we'll be discussing some questions about you or people you know. So the first question is, have you had low self-esteem or felt worthless, rejected, helpless, or hopeless? Please stand up if you ever have. Don't be afraid. This is just to see, like, you're not alone. Other people go through the same things you may be going through, okay? So, have you had a major lack of energy or interest in daily activities? If you haven't, okay. Okay. Have you suddenly become very quiet or withdrawn from other things that make you feel down? Have you had significant decline in your school performance? Don't laugh, girl, it's fine. Have you had trouble concentrating or thinking clearly? Have you had repeated sudden outbursts of anger or emotion over relatively small things? Have you experienced serious eating or sleeping problems? Very off schedule. Yeah? Okay. Have you had a noticeable decline in personal hygiene? Don't be afraid. It's fine. Have you felt that you are being watched or persecuted by others? Have you had very negative thoughts or blamed yourself for things you can't control or considered even suicide? Have you been cutting, burning, or doing other self-injury things to yourself? Have you been hearing voices or seeing things that others do not? Like a spirit, you've heard someone whisper in your ear, you have two little devils and angels inside of you. Nothing? Okay, cool.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Dequan, or D, as you've already seen. Okay, so my question for you is, what is mental illness to you, and how real is it among teens? Like how do we face it, and how do we feel about it? Anyone?
Anyone have any answers?
Okay. Can you stand up? Thank you.
I think mental health is very serious, especially among teens. I personally have encountered a lot of issues with people I know, or if I don't know them, people have come to me asking me for advice, which I can't really help them on. But it is very serious. It's a very serious topic, and one thing that I personally feel very passionate about.
To me, I think mental health is the brain's way of coping with certain stressful situations and adapting to different situations.
Anyone else have any answers? No?
I wanted to raise the fact that we had many teens stand up. And that exercise that Quinn did was to kind of show that everyone or somebody that you know has experienced these things. So I want to make it very clear very early that we are all in this together. We've all experienced some of the same things. And if you guys had an opportunity to read your shirt, the kind of theme of today is it's okay not to be okay, but it's okay to do what? To talk about it. So that's what we're doing today, okay? Just want to make that known. And so your feedback is very, very, very critical today, okay?
Okay, so next up we have another question from Kiki.
Hi guys, my name's Kiesha, but as you just heard, I'm Kiki for today. Okay, so raise your hand if you know of anybody who's a victim of like the nasty pictures getting leaked on. Yeah. And raise your hand if you've seen or been the victim of cyberbullying. So my question to all of you is, what do you think about cyberbullying or sexting and the like morals behind it? Yes.
I believe like the morals of it is it mainly goes on because nowadays this generation we feel grown, I guess. Sometimes we not really in relationship with reality. So, you know, they get into relationships and then they send pictures to the significant other, and then things happen and they separate. And then because we all have our opinions and we all have the way we feel about each other, when arguments, like little petty arguments go and pictures and stuff get sent out, and you usually send them to people you trust, and then it kind of goes wrong. Yeah.
And how do you guys feel that affects your mental health?
I mean, she raised a really good point saying that you guys, I mean, not you guys, but teens these days, they act real brave sending these pictures, but you don't know that it's illegal and you and your partner can go to jail. So it's very dangerous. Do you think it has an emotional effect on people? And how do you think it affects people emotionally? You can say something.
Okay, so emotionally, I think that if you know how sometimes you don't like a person and you see something about it, like, oh, I'm gonna get this girl thing, you just send all the stuff, but it's like you don't know what they're going through in the life and the mind. Like you don't know how they react to things, so it can hurt them, it can harm them, they can harm themselves. So you don't really know what happens with them, so just don't do it, you know?
Okay, you're next.
Okay, so as you know, we have the solution team. So it says, in Bermuda, teens still want to go to Maui. What are some solutions that can encourage teens to seek mental health care if they need it in Bermuda? And that's the problem that they are working on at the moment. Oh, well, yeah, they're going to work on it. So.
Right, so if you're a part of the solution team, we're going to have you leave right now and go and help solve that for us. And while they're leaving, we want to just have a conversation about it. They're going to solve it for us, but we just want to kind of hear your feedback about the fact that the youth nowadays, doesn't want to either go to Maui or call Maui or go to other professionals to get help when they're feeling emotionally exhausted or things are going on in their lives. And we talk about mental health, guys. We're not just talking about severe episodes. We're talking about, being overly stressed, going through grief and loss, and not being able to, get the necessary help for those things. So what are you guys' thoughts on why youth are not getting the help that they need?
So I personally feel that people won't, especially teens, won't go to Maui or anywhere to get professional help is the big taboo surrounded by that place. It's if someone else finds out that you went there, they're like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why do you have that going on? Aren't you all right in your head? Da, da, da. So it's like the taboo and the stigma surrounding mental health really discourages people from seeking or wanting to go get help from anyone, even though they know that they kind of really need it. But it's discouraging to hear from somebody else that you may be close with or you don't even know say that it's not all right to go there to find help when you know you really need it.
Anyone else? Go ahead while I walk over there.
Oh, speak? Okay. So, I think a big problem in Bermuda, or just like the world in general, is that they're not very informed about mental illnesses. So, like a solution about this is to have like workshops, not only for the students, but for the teachers, so they can recognize the signs of mental illnesses, or even like help them learn ways to help the students cope, or students have like assemblies or special workshops so they can learn how to cope with anxiety or stress, or just like the hard times of being a teenager. And the government can even do, how we do drug tests in school and it's anonymous, like the beginning of the year? We can do one about mental illnesses, like not really mental illnesses, but like check this if you eat less or something, so they can get an idea of the statistic of how people, what's happening.
I feel like a big factor in people not wanting to get help is because, like to carry on, people, when they hear you go Maui or you go to somebody you think you can trust and they're like, oh, you're over-exaggerating, you're just going over the top with it, it makes you feel like, oh, I can't go to nobody. And then also stress can make you feel like over the top and overworked. And then it's just like you feel like you can't go to nobody because they won't understand. So you could be going through anything and someone will be willing to help you, but you just don't feel that comfortable to open it up. Because I don't either. I don't feel comfortable opening up to other people. And I just rather like keep it to myself, but I know opening up sometimes can make it worse. And so it's just the fact of opening up to people and not having that trust. It's just us as it's just this generation of like everything. We feel like we can only trust ourselves. We can't trust nobody. So I just feel it's just the trust and comfortability of opening up.
I think trust is a big thing about it. Like she said, I know there's a difference between talking to your close friends about it because you trust them, you feel you can express yourself to them. But somewhere like Maui where it's almost unknown, you don't know the people there, you're not comfortable there. Even before you even go there, you don't feel comfortable with going there because you kind of don't know what it's all about. So I think educating people, letting them know how it works, maybe introducing kids to either professionals that are there so that they know how it works, who they're dealing with, and they can build a relationship with them before they actually encounter problems and have to go.
I think that it's not so much about trusting, well, me personally, I think it's not so much about trusting people, but it's also the fact that I think we diminish kind of the knowledge of it. So I feel like a lot of teens don't know too much about it, because I know a lot of people just say, oh, KMS, for like the littlest thing. But when no one really like takes it seriously even. So I think if we just like increase the knowledge about mental health like altogether, then you can educate people on like how to get help and the right ways to get help, finding someone trustworthy, or even like the right people to go to. So I just think it's kind of education and knowledge about it.
We have this side. Anyone want to? Look, she's. Okay. I have a question for everyone here. Who thinks that adults don't take them seriously? Yep. I feel like another problem towards mental illnesses and stuff is that when you tell an adult, oh, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling tired, they're like, oh, I can get through that. Why can't you get through that? Because they don't understand what you're going through. And in turn, like, they'll force you to push beyond what you're capable of. So you're just straining the child, and then you're gonna push them to a point where they want to give up, want to break down, the mind's in shambles. When it could have been prevented in the first place if you just listened to them. So yeah.
So I feel like sometimes doing around with mental illness is that when you tell other people, it kind of discourages them to be open about what condition they have or what they're going through, or like what's happening with me. Because like you said, trust is a big deal, like in this generation especially, because you don't know who to trust. Like, whoa. So it's just about them letting you down, or like they're discouraging you. You can't let yourself be open to other people, or tell yourself or tell them about your things. You want to say something?
Well, so speaking from me, I don't really like talking about myself. So if I did have a mental illness, I probably wouldn't tell anybody about it, because I feel like it would be like a burden to them. So that's just me.
Well, I feel as if I feel as if you like you have a mental illness, that we should like inform more children and have more programs like this, because a lot of children around the island don't know if they have it or not, because it's like this stigma that you think that if you have a mental illness you're crazy, or you're not like everyone else. But many of us might have a mental illness and we might not even know. So if we have more programs like what someone said earlier, I don't know who it was. Yes, we should have more programs to inform us, like teens like us. So we will learn more about our mental illnesses if we have one, or others, yeah. So we won't discourage others.
Anybody else want to say anything about mental illness, or anyone they know of with mental illness? No? Experiences of mental illness? Any other person? Okay.
Okay, so let's pull out some questions here. So earlier, the young lady raised the issue of trust, and I think the young man here did as well. So what are some ways that adults can earn your trust? What would you say if you had your opportunity to speak to all the adults, not necessarily just in the room, but in Bermuda, and this is your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your godmother, professionals, guidance counselors, what would you say, or what do we need to know to help gain you guys' trust?
I would say confidentiality. Having to earn a person's trust, that person have to be able to confide in you and feel comfortable around you. Be in a space in terms of the comfortable enough to be able to open up. Yeah.
Hello. I feel like when teens confide in adults, a lot of times their reactions are very extreme. So you'll either half the time have someone freaking out, acting like, your world is ending, or you'll have an adult who just won't understand and be like, get over it. Why aren't you happy? And I think it's important to educate adults that mental illness is a common and normal thing to have, and that if somebody confides in you that they feel like they might be going through something, to be patient and understanding.
I think one of the first ways to sort of help teens feel more comfortable with talking to adults about any mental illnesses or issues that they're having going on in their life would be to just start by having an open conversation about mental health itself. So you don't necessarily have to be going through something, but just so you know that like the adult is okay with that and willing to support you if something does come up. Yeah.
I feel that adults aren't as understanding as we need them to be. So say if I was going to talk to my guidance counselor, I know that I can't disclose as much things as I would want to, because the trust isn't there that they will be completely honest with me. The honesty is that what I'm gonna say to you, you're gonna take it wholeheartedly, and that it's an actual problem, or not even a problem, that what I'm saying to you is okay. It's like, it's scary to speak to somebody and feel like you're not being heard because of your age, your gender, your race, your religion. It's the bias that we get from other people. And I will say that in my experience, it does come from adults quite a bit, because they feel like since we're younger, we're less experienced and we're naive and we don't know what's going on around the world. So it's really frustrating for me personally when you want to speak to an adult and they just take what you say with a grain of salt. They don't take it serious. They don't think anything a child or a teen has to say is serious. They think you're automatically joking, or you're not on a level of understanding or having the level of maturity to talk about certain issues.
Kids are smarter than you think.
Kiki says kids are smarter than we think. Do you guys believe that to be true?
I don't believe it.
Yes?
I mean, it's true and wrong in the same in like a certain sense, because sometimes we think that we are adults and that we can do whatever we want and you don't have to listen to them, because I don't know why. But yeah. But sometimes you do need help from your parents, and you can decide for yourself if what they try to help you with is actually helpful. But if it's not, then look elsewhere.
Awesome. How many students in here own cell phones, smartphones, iPhones, Android? Do we have Androids still? Samsung? Jeez. Everyone owns one. How do you think? I think my solution team is just about finished. The last question before they come back. How do you think that the whole technology of cell phones and having access to anything you want, whenever you want, and talking to whomever you want, does that help? Because we didn't have, I know we had beepers when I was growing up. And do you guys know what a beeper is? A pager, beeper. Beeper. A pager. So when I was going, I'm not as old as some of the other older people in the room. No, but what I'm saying is I had a pager. And the pager was this little thing like this size, and I had one that like was maroon in color, so I was one of the cool kids because they came in like black, but I had a maroon one and it was like see-through. This was the thing when I was a kid, right? And when people wanted to get in contact with you, they will call the pager and it would just beep, and you only thing you can do was see the number, and then you'd have to like go find a phone and like say, okay, my mom is paging me, I need to call her on the phone. That was our iPhone, right? Well, that was my version of iPhone before phones started really picking up. So, but now, you know, and I have two daughters now, you guys have so much at your fingertips. So my question to you guys is, how do you think that access to all of this stuff helps or hurts when it comes to your emotional well-being or your mental health? Do you think that having all of that stuff is better for you or worse?
I think it might be worse because, or it depends, because you might see something that you really like, say like your favorite song or your favorite music writer just came out with a new song, and without a phone or a computer you wouldn't see that. However, you might see something else that you don't like, say an idol of yours just died, or someone who you, and that might just hurt you.
Ooh, this is loud, sorry. It depends on the person, because people could use technology or your phone in a positive or a negative way. It's just, how do you prefer to use it? Like you said, you leaking the pictures and the videos, and then you got your songs or your idols' pictures or whatever. It just depends on the person you are. Okay.
Okay. Hello. I would say that it is definitely helpful because a lot of teens, like speaking for myself as well, I feel like I can work through, I don't know if I have a mental illness, but I can definitely work through like any emotional problems, and I'm very stubborn, so I want to do it on my own. And so if the choice is between with no phone, no like internet support, no being able to like look up what's happening or other people like on forums, like I would rather have that than just nothing. Because in a lot of cases, as much as you talk a big game about like getting people help, if they don't want help, there's not too much you can do. So it's better to have internet than nothing.
I honestly think that like technology and everything sits in a gray area. It's good and bad, and it's malicious people everywhere. You could be in real life and somebody could do something to you. You could be online and somebody could do something to you, whether it be good or bad. So it really just depends on how you take it and how it affects you, how you let it affect you, and how you use it yourself. Like learning about mental illness. You can use your technology to learn, or you can use it to further hurt someone else.
So kind of going off what she said, there's an upside and a downside to everything. So you could look at it on the bright side. You can reach out to people who are going through similar things as you, similar people who you may not meet in person. But there is a downside. Mainstream media has a lot of people portraying like perfect lives that they aren't actually living. And that can definitely be detrimental to your mental health, but it all depends on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the point she was just making, because you know I am considered a social media guru, and you know I see so many photos of people's lives that they put on Facebook and Instagram, and they have the world or their friends perceive that they are okay. You know, you have people that, you know, post all the positives about their lives. No one's really posting negatives about their lives. No one's posting I just got this, or I lost this person. It's always very positive images of themselves. And then, sometimes you see people posting negative things and you don't know how to take it. So when we get down to like the social media aspect, we have to be very careful that we're not putting out, the whole saying, the boy that cries wolf. We're not putting out things that later on we can't take back. So it's keeping technology, as you guys have all alluded to. You guys gave great answers. It's keeping it relative, using it for what it's meant to be used for. And if you do need help, like my young man said, you can access the information to actually get the help that you need. So that's very important comments. So we do have our solution team back.
May I add something too?
Oh, sure.
Sorry. I also think that a break from social media and stuff would be a good thing too, because too much of it, you'll get lost in that reality, or like fake reality of all those likes and perfect lives and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
I feel like cyberbullying is like a factor to that. So when people send negative things about themselves, like, oh, I have a mental illness, can someone help me out? Their friends may react to it in a bad way, so they don't know how to respond, say they want to say something negative, which turns into cyberbullying, because you're sitting on the other side of the phone saying, oh, my friend has this, I don't know how to react to this. So let's just go with him and just bully him or something, I don't know. So they're probably scared and they're not informed of how to react to something like that, yeah.
Oh, and another way that you get lost in reality is like some people have like personas that they portray online instead of real life, and it could be good, like, because some people are just more confident, so it's not really that bad. So it can be a way to practice to love yourself or boost yourself up. But then some people are just being evil online, and yeah, because you won't speak up in real life.
Okay. Thank you, guys. So we're going to have our solution team come up and give us a solution. Let's read the problem one more time.
Got it. It's that one. Okay, so the problem was, in Bermuda, teens don't want to go to Maui. What are some solutions that can encourage teens to seek mental health care if they need it in Bermuda?
Come on up, team.
Down.
Why isn't a Berkeley student up there?
So I think what we all came to the conclusion of was that a lot of what we see in society, or a lot of the issues that we see surrounding whether or not students actually want to seek help, is due to society's stigma surrounding mental illness. And it's not necessarily our fault. We live in a society that's kind of reliant on establishing things which we consider norms. And I mean, when you look at the basic structure of society, this is true. We have things like laws, we have common things that we see as normal and abnormal behavior. And I think the problem is that we see things that deviate from these norms as things that are wrong, and when we see things that are wrong, we don't necessarily want to be those things. Additionally, I think that we kind of agreed that the reason why a lot of teens don't really want to seek out this help is because they're afraid of feeling like they're individuals, afraid of not feeling like they're part of like a collective, and that's not necessarily true, as we saw at the beginning of this exercise. The solutions we came up with were kind of bringing the Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute towards these students. And the reason why I say Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute is because because it is the Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute. It's not Maui. We need to stop saying that. But essentially kind of making more, like raising awareness around it. So firstly, we kind of thought that doing it through education would be necessary. So doing things like assemblies and integrating it more so into schools, kind of creating the narrative that mental illness isn't necessarily a choice, because it really isn't. In addition to this, we thought that doing things like social media campaigns would be really, really beneficial to the movement. So for example, like, having Instagram pages where we discuss it, because that's something that's very, very accessible to a lot of people. Additionally, we thought that this kind of social media narrative should be constructed by us as young people, because we're the ones who understand how to relate to our generation the most. But don't misinterpret this point. We still believe that individuals should kind of seek help from individuals that are older, because we think that this has the dangerous capacity to create echo chambers in which a lot of people who kind of don't necessarily know how to handle emotions are stuck together, and it's just the same rhetoric being thrown around over and over again. Another thing we saw, which could be useful, were things like teen support groups. So opportunities for teenagers to come together and discuss mental illness issues in which they face. So we thought this would be really, really useful. In fact, it's not necessarily that isolated of a thing. We have it at Work Academy, for example. And one of the things we thought was necessary here was that for older students to kind of come forward, because like those students are kind of the individuals who kind of set the norm in certain situations, or a lot of them have leadership positions. In addition to that, like we thought that one thing that's really essential is therapy for a lot of students, and having an increase in accessibility to therapy. Like in the same way that you would go and see a teacher if you're struggling with homework, you should be able to see your guidance counselor, and that should be something that is normalized throughout school. And even if you don't feel comfortable seeing a guidance counselor at your school, there should be both options in terms of like private healthcare and like public healthcare for you to have some kind of therapy. That's something that we saw as like really, really necessary, because then we have an opportunity to actually refer people who need help towards the Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute in a way that's really, really comfortable for them. And also kind of just discussing it. Like mental health shouldn't be something which we're afraid to discuss. I personally go and see a therapist. I'm not ashamed of that. I struggle with a lot of mental health issues myself, and I'm not afraid to admit that, because I know that that starts the discussion, and that's really, really important in terms of me moving forward and me being able to accept like how to move forward. And so those were kind of the solutions we came up with, I guess.
Can I say something, please? Sorry. Sure. I just wanted to let you know that therapy is like not only for people with mental illnesses. If you feel like you want to get your feelings out, but you don't want to talk to your parents, a therapist is a nice third party that you can talk to. And it's free at what is it called again? Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institution. Yes, I'm sorry.
So I want to, this is not over with, but I want to highlight and thank you for you guys' comments today. I mean, I just want to give them another round of applause. Like, I'm super impressed with what you guys have come up with in such a short amount of time. I really appreciate the whole allowing young people to assist with certain social media campaigns and the like, because you guys speak the lingo. And somebody back there said some sort of KMS, and I was like, what is KMS? What is it though?
I just killed myself.
No? Okay. So, I mean, I just want to thank you guys for the time and effort you put in. Is there anyone else from the group that want to share some of the other discussions that you guys had?
Oh, the other thing we kind of thought was crucial was transparency. Like one thing that we found was an issue was like the lack of knowledge around the actual process or what happens at the Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute. And we thought that was kind of problematic, because that would dissuade somebody from actually going out and seeking help. It's like, for example, if you're getting surgery, you kind of want to know like what's going to happen or what that process is. Like there's not as much information as we think is necessary out there telling people what exactly is going to happen to them, and just general information about the institute itself, because it's really, really hard for people to talk about it. So.
We have an extra position at Mid-Atlantic Wellness. Great. So we're gonna have the host introduce an extra panel member that we're gonna have come up before we discuss the last two topics. And these two topics are very, very significant right now in Bermuda. So we want to make sure that we have the right individuals on the panel to assist our panel with.
Okay, so can we all welcome the Honorable Tanae Ferber JP, MP, Junior Minister of Disability Affairs.
Yep.
Okay, so the first question or topic will be teens in Bermuda, the violence and how it impacts their mental health. So what do you think? And we also would like to bring this question towards the Junior Minister too. So which... Oh, what's that? Okay. So it was for teens in Bermuda. How does violence and other things impact their mental health? Anyone? Yeah.
What I have to say about that is in Bermuda, the society nowadays is if our peers, like if I have a group of friends and that person has a group of friends, if one person gets in a fight, your friends are always supposed to jump in, but a true friend would let you sort it out yourself. So a lot of people don't get that nowadays. They say, oh, I'm gonna help my boy. So that's how Bermudians talk. I'm gonna help my boy out and I'm gonna jump in. But really, if you really wanted to help your boy out, you would tell him that's not right. Do the right thing and walk away and be the better person. So adults say now, be the better person and walk away. And that has a lot of stress on us because some friends are not gonna take it lightly. They're gonna say, you're supposed to have my back, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. But really, as a friend, we're here to assist you and push you on in life. As a friend, you should be there, not in a negative way, you should be there to help, I would say. But how it stresses out people is they take it the wrong way.
Just to, and go ahead and hand the mic, just to kind of add to the question here, I think also for those that may have experienced a form of not just violence, but loss and grief, we have a lot of young people in Bermuda that, have motorcycles and I'm not a fan of these things, but people, they pass on, they die. We have gang violence and the like. So violence, grief, loss, how does that all impact our mental well-being?
Well, I think not only in terms of security do people feel like they're impacted significantly by violence, but I think the violence in itself is a symptom of a culture in which we don't have a good narrative or discussion around like mental illness within itself. Because when you look at violence in itself, it's not necessarily the only option when people resort to that level of violence. In fact, it's not necessarily something that's seen as being normal or conductive towards society. And I guess the problem here is that when we don't have any positive outlets for those negative emotions, they build up and they actually kind of end up leading to that level of violence and leading to that level of antisocial behavior. And I think maybe if our culture was more willing to have an open dialogue on these things, we would possibly see even less violence and less impacts from that violence. And I think a lot of it has to do with a lack of a way to channel that and channel those emotions.
Anyone else?
I think nowadays we're getting more desensitized to deaths, like gang deaths or bike accidents, because it's like happening every other week now. So, yeah.
I don't know your name. Yes.
Jody.
Well, like Jody said, motorcycle violence and all that, well, the accidents and everything. Sometimes who's doing Project Ride like this year? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, so has your parents ever been like, well, I don't want you on the streets because all these people are like driving stupid or riding stupid and then you're gonna get in an accident or whatever. It all has to do with that. Like people don't really pay attention on the road or for other people around them. So it's like that kind of violence that spooks people and stuff. Anybody else?
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to add, with every action, there is a reaction, and with every action, there is a consequence or there is a behavior. And so whenever we are participating in actions, we should also be thinking about what the reaction will be or what the consequence will be. When it comes to teens and violence, I think Jody hit the nail on the head when we talk about grief and loss and what people may feel after they've experienced violence. I think it's important that after a violent activity happens that we are seeking out grief counseling, not only for that instant or that month, but we also have to look at how it affects us over a lifetime, because I think initially there's help that comes and helps families initially, and then family members are left later down the road when they're still having to deal with such grief and loss later. And so I think it's important that someone mentioned that, we can go for counseling to talk about our issues. And I think it's very important that you have a forum, a friend, a family member, a church group, any organization who you can speak to in regards to dealing with any stressful grief or loss as it does relate to violence, because it can be, I mean, we talk about violence. I did a forum actually last evening in regards to road traffic collisions, and we did not have a number of people out, and I thought it was a very important topic that many people should be concerned about, because it is an epidemic in Bermuda. But I guess we all internally, someone mentioned, we internally deal with our grief and loss, but it is important not to keep things in, but to also have a forum to be able to get it out. So making sure that you have a friend, a family member, an association group, church group, whatever that is, to be who you feel comfortable with in sharing that information. Okay.
Does anyone feel comfortable with sharing maybe their own or someone they know's experience with grief or loss or violence and how that may have impacted their mental well-being?
I'm not going to say that person's name, but my friend that goes Sparkly, her brother was stabbed like, I think 3 months ago over the summer, and it was something to do with gang violence, but she's working her way to try to not think about it no more. And I think that's like a shaky topic, because instead of them solving it out, because I think it was something foolish that they thought about, they could have just talked it out. But since, like Asher said, we have created a dialogue or something inside our culture where we always have to resort to violence rather than trying to sort things out in situations. So I think we need to try to work on that.
About almost 2 years ago, my cousin was shot and he died. And I know it negatively impacted my family, like, hugely. Like, we can't really talk about it much anymore. His mom, she still doesn't, she can barely say his name sometimes. Even though it was almost a while ago, it's still really heavy on us, and we still feel it like it's yesterday. And it's just something that takes a while to get over, if you do ever get over it. And it just impacts, it doesn't just impact the one individual, it impacts everybody. It impacted family, friends, whole communities, his entire neighborhood. And it was related to gang violence.
So this isn't in Bermuda, but in the States, I have 3 siblings, and they all grew up in a kind of a rough neighborhood. I have a half-sister, a half-brother, and a stepsister. And because of the kind of culture that they grew up in, my 2 older siblings were involved in gang violence and a lot of drug-related stuff as well. And my sister recently got into an accident on the freeway and ended up actually injuring other people and killing some people because of this drug overdose. And I think it definitely does create, like, it's something that needs to be talked about within the community, that these things are happening, and that same thing with gang violence. Once you get in, it's very hard to get out. And I think it's important that we start a discussion about how we can create kind of segues for these people to go talk and discuss what's going on in their lives, to get out of that situation and get out of that community that encourages it, or, you know, a community where it says it's okay to join a gang.
Thank you guys for sharing. Is that a hand up in the back? No, she put her hand down real quick. Oh, excellent.
About 2 weeks ago, I had a friend, and she lost about 3 friends in 3 weeks, and she was crying a lot, and like after her 3rd friend had passed, she was just used to it, and she got over it fast because she was just used to like losing friends. And I feel that she felt that way because she wasn't opening up about it, so to cope with it, she just had to forget about her loss, although inside she was really hurting a lot.
I appreciate your comments as well, because that is how it kind of trickles back down to these things manifesting into what we call mental illness. So the way that these grief and loss and violence and these things happen is they have a buildup of emotions, and we can kind of go deep into the power of the mind and the different chemicals the brain releases when it's going through grief and heartache and pain. And if the chemicals are released too much, then that can affect your mental well-being. So this is why, mental illness is not this kind of cloud that just kind of goes over somebody's, like somebody's body, and they just kind of, it actually is a buildup and a release of chemicals in the brain. And those negative chemicals continue to build up, will start to impact our mental wellness, and then we'll start seeing things like depression, like bipolar disorder, like schizophrenia, and there's many others. So it's very important. That's why we wanted to kind of raise this topic, is that students and young people understand how it actually impacts our lives. So when you have those types of losses or anything related to gang violence, and the young lady said that it's difficult for her family to even speak about it, and we want to make sure that even today we align you guys and we have professionals in the room, equip you guys with resources that you can have available to you, so you can speak about these topics, because it's very important that you guys get the help that you need. Because mentally healthy young people turn into mentally healthy, and there's a lot of mentally unhealthy adults walking around here because they wasn't mentally healthy. So this is why it's important to tackle these topics today and get you guys the resources that you need to grow up and be mentally healthy adults, correct? Okay. We have one more question.
Okay. Given the growing rate of suicide among teens, how can we help stop suicide in Bermuda? And what programs can you start within your schools that will prevent this in the future?
Okay, I'm going to relate to this. It's going to be one topic. I'm going to relate to one, it's on Lifetime. It says it's okay to be different. And I was talking about how a group of teens, they were bullying somebody that was different. They had Down syndrome. So he tried to overdose and try different things to end his life. But they started support groups in the school, and his mom tried to get him help, but it didn't work. So they found different people around the area. And I think it's more than, a lot of people are scared to express their feelings, because if you get a group of people and one person says, I have Down syndrome, another person can have Down syndrome inside that room, but they're afraid to speak up. So that one person is left alone, so they feel like an outcast. So all I'm gonna say, it's okay to be different, and I don't like the word numb yourself, because a lot of people say, since I'm going through this topic, since I'm going through this feeling, emotion, a lot of people they use, they repress, they want to numb their feelings. Going to what, Miss Jojo, that's her name? What's her name? She was saying that you should try to find help, find people that are going through the same things, because they can assist you on how to go on and how to become cured. I like using that term too, cured.
I know for people that do have suicidal thoughts that it's often really difficult to reach out to others or to go and find help, because since it's such a serious and such a touchy topic, people don't want to seem like they are suicidal. But I think that it's important for us to notice the people around us and to see that if someone
seems like they are struggling or they do seem like they're having suicidal thoughts, that we kind of take notice of that and try and help them so that they don't feel like they're completely alone and that they can't go to someone to get help, because otherwise it could be the difference between someone going through with it or not going through with it.
As teens, we often see a lot. So like as Amori said, the more we have support groups or support classes, or the more we have teachers as well to help us go through some stages of life that we can't express or we can't talk to other people, the more support groups we have, the more fundamental things we could like have, like let's say activities we could do to like express our ways, or through writing or music or whatever our talents can be. We could use that as a step to like overcome or go through the things that we have trapped or enclosed ourselves with. So like the more groups that we have, or the more activities or fun things we can do, the more we can progress through our problems.
I know the question was geared towards programs like social programs that we can initiate in schools, but I'm going to talk about just simply reducing accessibility to the means. So, this guy with Down syndrome, you said, tried to kill himself through overdose. That is all too easy to get prescription drugs to do that. So simply just, I don't know how you would reduce that, but at least acknowledging it is good, I guess.
Okay, so I would say, almost following on from the point that he just made, is that it may not be the feel-good explanation, but we really need to get treatment more accessible, like getting people antidepressants, because people, if you're suicidal, if you're at that point, you're going to be taking like painkillers or something. You're not just going to be, oh, one day I wake up and I'm going to be suicidal. It's a big progression, and a lot of people aren't going to come forward, so we need to make it more accessible to get these people the help they need, because they're going to turn to something anyways, so.
It's important to look for the signs in your friends and be a support system for your friends. And if you kind of notice the signs of a suicidal person in your friends, or you are concerned about the mental well-being of your friends, it is important to reach out to an adult you trust, because even though your friend might not want you to reach out, life is worth more than a friendship. So it's important that you be there for your friends and be a good friend by getting them the help they need.
I would say in Bermuda, I personally have not heard of suicide occurring here. So the thing about with me personally is the thing that it's not vocalized as much, that it is a problem. It is an issue here. Somebody might just not know that it does occur here, or it doesn't. People will have so many different opinions about how to help other people, or how to give advice to other people about how to deal with someone. And it's very difficult. This subject is a very difficult and trying and emotionally stressful situation to talk about or to be in, because I personally have been there. It was a part of how we were talking about grieving. It was a part of the grieving process for me. And I just want to know, like, for me, I have gotten over that. I have been through things that I'm not ashamed of anymore. And it does come through the help of others and the not having the stigma of going to somebody else for help. And I would say one thing that I know, that back then when I was going through these, I think the one thing that I really think I needed was someone to just come up to me and say, it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay that you're feeling this. It's okay that you have an off day. It's okay that you're going through this. You're not alone. You're different. You're gonna be different. And a big thing is embracing your differences. I know us as a generation and a society, everyone wants to be included into a group. But everyone, we're different. We're not the same. Me and you don't look the same. We don't probably have the same religion. We don't have the same sexual preference, anything. It's just embracing the differences between other people is probably the biggest thing. And not, for suicide, is not addressing it head on, saying, we're gonna talk about this. Do it lightly, because I know as a person, I know for me, I feel a little iffy when I hear the word suicide. I feel like you're just going to immediately press onto that subject. Ease on to the person. It's you get very self-conscious when you go straight for like ripping the band-aid off. Sometimes someone needs you to really gently pull it off. So yeah, that's what I had to say.
But I think what it is that when you struggle with mental health, it is a battle between your rational brain and your emotional brain. You know that the things you're feeling rationally aren't things that are solutions, or are things that are like kind of very outlandish, but emotionally you feel like those things are important and that those are things that actually matter. And so when you're told that those things aren't validated, they're things you just shouldn't feel, or that, you know, just get over it. And when you're told that those emotions, that like that emotional feeling isn't a good thing, like that's so detrimental towards your development. Honestly, I think that what we just need to do is tell people that their thoughts and their feelings and those negative feelings are valid. Like having those feelings is a valid way to feel, and like regardless of how irrational it may seem. Because once you can kind of validate them, then you can engage with those emotions. You can ask them questions about why do you feel that. Like if somebody says I'm feeling suicidal and you just say, well, that's kind of stupid, or suicide is selfish, that's not necessarily acknowledging or validating that feeling, but it is a valid feeling for someone to have. It's something that a lot of people do have. Like when we don't validate that, then we just tell people that if you feel suicidal, it doesn't matter, or that like we don't really care, when in reality it's something that we do care about.
Well, for me, I feel that the influence of teens as a whole, when someone wants to talk about that they're about to commit suicide, a friend's like, oh, that's okay, like going off what she just said, we don't really stress it as much. And if someone else is going to commit suicide, or they want to, if we feel the same way, we want to put them down, we're jealous of them, because, or if we're jealous of them because they've gotten through it and we haven't. And so we put them down because we haven't gotten through it. Like, oh, you just came off, you just went to commit suicide, now you're better now, but I'm gonna bully you because I feel the same way. So I feel like we should like have a, like I have said before, we should inform others of how to cope with that and tell them that it's okay not to be okay.
I just want to ask a question. If you guys have a friend that's getting the suicidal problems, just ask yourself, as a friend, how far would I go? Or what extent would I go? Or will I go this far just to say, you know what, it's on your end, or be on your end, it's your problem, not mine? Or as a true friend, would I say, you know what, let's sit down, let's have a conversation, let's go through the problems, let's make a list of what we can do? Or would I go to the parents, even say, your son has problems? Because not all teens go to the parents and say, Mom, I have a problem. Because as parents, we say something, and the parents will say something that we would expect to hear, or like, go to your room, it's nothing, it's not a big deal, you could just go sleep it off. But as a teen, it's like, how far would anyone go for you? How far, what extent? So just, if your friend's getting the suicidal problem, just ask yourself, how far will I go?
I just wanted to add to the conversation. I used to work in a mental hospital overseas, and I used to work in the acute unit where we used to have people come in, and lots of people who had tried to commit suicide. And I remember one particular case. It was a young lady. She had 2 young boys. She had left a letter on her dining room table, and she had taken a bunch of pills to try to commit suicide. And I had to, as the professional therapist at the time, I had to interview her and try to ask her questions in regards to what it was that she had done. And at that time, I couldn't quite process and figure out why. Why would she want to leave her 2 young sons? Why was she feeling this way? She has so much to look forward to. Life is so important. So it was a very because we all might actually feel that way when we are encountering people who may have suicidal ideations in not understanding their experience. But what's important is that we do listen, and we do listen as friends, and it doesn't matter why, because each and every one of us will have our own reasons of why we are internally processing something. But what's important is that people do come and they get help, and they want to feel supported when they do come and get help. And I think somebody used the term crying wolf, because there are persons out there who maybe be mentally well, and they will try to attempt suicide more than once. And, we say, we don't want to be the person who cries wolf. And when someone says, oh, I feel like I'm going to commit suicide, I don't want to live anymore, and you're doing that over and over and over again, that we do listen each and every time. We want to be very serious about people who are making those sorts of comments and statements to us, and don't ever feel like someone is crying wolf. You want to go and you want to talk to them, and you want to make sure that they're being led in the right direction or feeling supported. As it can be very exhausting, but you still want to make sure that you're leading them in the right direction to try to receive help, or you're at least sitting there or standing by to listen, because it can just be that one time. And so we want to try to be as supportive as possible, no matter how exhausting it may feel. Okay?
Thank you.
I also think that, everyone thinks differently. So this whole mentality that people have, like competing with each other's sadness. Like someone will say, oh, I'm sad because my goldfish died today. Or like, oh, my daddy died. It's really like, it's awful, because you're basically downplaying the feelings. Because even if it's not as serious as you think, yeah, it's still sad and it's still affecting them. So don't downplay the sadness.
Okay, considering the topic of suicide, it's quite a complex and quite a sensitive topic. And when you're looking at avenues that lead people towards taking their own life, one of the major ones is nihilism. Does anyone in this room understand the concept of nihilism? Would like to comment on it? All right, I'll take the liberty of doing it. Oh, go right ahead.
Nihilism is the idea kind of that basically, to put this in the simplest terms, nothing actually matters, basically.
Surprisingly simple and surprisingly effective definition. Certainly there are quite a few ways in which you can reach this level of nihilism, and one of the major ways of getting there is experiencing severe trauma. Not always a loss in the family, but let's say someone you really care about has severed all ties with you. You may feel like life is constantly putting you down, all right? And one of the ways of reaching nihilism is coming to a feeling that everything is going against you, right? A great example of nihilism appears in the Bible, the story of Cain and Abel. Right? And Cain experiences ultimate nihilism, and he eventually is led to kill his own brother, right? Out of feeling that everything's against him, he curses God, says, God is against me too. And it's important to realize that here in Bermuda, a number of people suffer from this nihilism. And it's important to realize that the number one way of escaping this nihilism is goal setting, and that ties into the theme of gang violence as well. The lack of goal setting among young people here is quite a problem. It's one of the reasons why we see such severe gang violence. All right, it's a sign of a degrading cultural ethos. And certainly goal setting is important, but it's also scary for young people. I'm trying to engage you guys. So could anybody maybe suggest why it's scary to set goals, whether they're academic, whether they're life goals? Anyone? Greta. Fear of failure. Perfect. That is the answer I was looking for. When you set up a goal for yourself, you're also setting conditions by which you can fail. And it's important to realize that failure is all right. Right? What is failure? Can anybody care to tell us what failure is? In a positive manner, of course, failure is more than just failing and messing up. Exactly. You don't achieve the goal you set, but what happens when you try again? You try again with experience. Right? So the message that I'm trying to tell you guys is that the ultimate way that we can avoid slipping into nihilism and avoid slipping into these major problems, such as gang violence, is ensuring that we're aiming up, right? Always aiming up. Even when life puts us down, we're aiming up. We're looking for the next opportunity. Because life is full of opportunities that are like doorways, except all the doorways are invisible sometimes. And it just takes looking for them to find them. Thank you.
So in Bermuda especially, with suicide, a lot of times people don't understand how anyone can be unhappy. You know, it's sunny every day, you live near the beach, you know, you're with all your friends, you go to a great school, you have good grades, whatever. Your life seems great. And then when you voice that you are unhappy, a lot of people just can't understand why. And they almost blame you. They say that you're ungrateful. They say, you know, you could be having a much worse life right now. How dare you have these emotions? And a lot of times when people say that they want to die or they want to commit suicide, it's a way of saying that they just want to stop. They just want the hurting to stop. And when your emotions are so extreme, it's very easy to jump to the extremest possible solution. So it's important to reroute the mental pathways in your head. So when you say you want to die, you really just want to stop hurting. And it's important to be mindful and listen to people and how they feel. A lot of times it's not your place to sit down with someone and, you know, make these big grand plans about how great their life is going to be. Most of the time, the most effective way to manage suicidal ideation is just to take it one day at a time, or even just focus on getting through the next hour, the next 10 minutes, the next 10 seconds, because that's really as simple as it needs to be.
You guys have all given great comments. And so what are some things, I know we have all of the schools in Bermuda, high schools in Bermuda represented today. And so what are some of the programs, and some of the faculty and staff and guidance counselors have come, which I appreciate you guys being here. So what are some of the things that you guys think the school needs to do to help with these types of things? What are some things that MSA or Cedarbridge, Berkeley, Mount St. Agnes, what can your school do that can help with combating suicidal thoughts, or just even making it a better environment to be mentally healthy at school?
I think that I know for myself, and I'm pretty sure everyone in here, we all used to have health class back in primary school, and we always talked about physical health. We never really touched on the topic of mental health, and I know that in the last few years it's become more prominent to talk about it. So being that we're talking about it while we're teenagers and we can understand it a bit more, and I'm hoping that that trickles down to younger kids so that they can talk about it, they can understand the issues of it, and they can understand that they can talk to people about it. Rather than having these problems now, you can start earlier down in school and almost stop the problems before they begin.
Excellent, and you're right. And I do remember in school we did the same thing. So it's been the same programs where it's just about physical health. And I don't remember one course until I took my master's degree program in mental health that I actually learned about mental illness and the extent of what it is. So you're absolutely correct. I do think that we can do more classes in school at an early age that deal with mental health. So that's a really good suggestion. It's actually something that I've been advocating for a while now. So hopefully Bermuda can lead the way. I think it should be a subject, mental health class. Because I tell you, as an adult, and the adults in the room can attest, you don't learn in school how to deal with the loss of a loved one. And you don't learn in school how to deal with, traumatic situations that happen. You really learn in school how to write a check and pay your bills. But you go off to be an adult and you have to figure these things out. So really interesting point you've made.
So I think one of the most important things is starting the conversation, and I know that we've talked about that a lot here already. But personally, I know it's hard to actually reach out to your guidance counselor, even if you know that they're there and that they want to talk to you. Taking that first step is probably half of the battle. And so I think something that would be really beneficial in a lot of schools is having the guidance counselor reach out to you individually, because even in a group setting like this where somebody comes up and says, oh, I'm here for you, come see me if you want, you're still with a ton of other people and you don't get to start building that relationship that really will allow you to reach out to them and let them know these things that you're going through.
So we have an example of smaller settings in the school system. Somebody. Oh, go ahead.
So I don't really suffer from this problem because I go to MSA, which is a smaller school than most high schools here. But I think a lot of people get drowned out by the crowd and don't really feel special at all. So because I go to MSA, which is smaller, the individual is emphasized more. So I think we should do that more in the bigger schools. It might be harder, but I think we should emphasize the individual, make them feel like they are worth something. And also, what you're talking about, how we haven't had a mental health class ever. We've only had physical health since primary. I'm with St. John's. I'm a first aider with St. John's, and we're making it mandatory that we now talk about mental health along with physical health.
And I want to keep the mic real fast because I follow-up question. So you with St. John's,
Yes.
and you guys do what? Can you explain exactly what you?
St. John's Ambulance is a volunteer healthcare providing service. So we respond to emergencies, we go to events just like the hospital would send their ambulance to emergencies. We assist the hospital. In fact, we also work alongside pretty closely with the fire department as well, because they also have ambulances. Any other questions?
And you guys are focused on
Physical health.
physical health, but
Yes.
you said that you're starting to make it mandatory to engage with mental health as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Any other suggestions? Now is your time to tell us what to do, young lady here.
Well, I go to Berkeley, and how our like student services work, you have to like now sign in, or if a teacher has called you for an appointment, you go in, you like sign in, you go into the teacher. But sometimes, like me personally, like I might have a moment in my class where I totally just like, when I feel I can't do something, I immediately shut down. I don't do work, I don't talk to anybody, I just sit there and I do nothing. And so if I was to try and call in, like every year level has their own counselor, and then my year level also has a behavior like counselor kind of. Like a behavior therapist. And so say if they're not in, or they're busy, or they don't answer the phone, I can't go to them. And sometimes a teacher might just say, oh, just sit there and like put your head down, go sleep, like do something to like keep your mind off it. But sometimes that's not the help I would need. I would need to talk to somebody. But if there's nobody there that I can talk to, there's no real solution. And I know you can't really go to the teacher because the teacher has to teach class, and then the counselors aren't there, you have nobody to really go to. So I feel like it's just more finding the solution of helping a person. Like, I don't really know how to do that solution, but yeah, it's just figuring out how to find a solution to those problems when there's no real solution at the time.
I also think that there should be some type of like break room for people who feel overwhelmed in schools, because we have a 95% attendance rule, so we can't like take a mental health day off at home. So if there's a way that we can just like take a little breather when it's too much, that would be nice. And Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institution, they have a teen and adolescent service place. So if they can talk to the teachers or something and like inform them about students, that would be nice too.
I want to also validate what you just said. I think I've had the privilege, and I've worked with Kathy, who's also works in mental health, and we have done some school tours, and I've heard this echoed so many times by the youth. So I actually want to call on Miss Ferbert here. I have heard students and teachers at every single school, both elementary, middle, and high school, beg for mental health education. Not just in a class setting, but I find teachers have also come up to me after we've spoken, and principals, and said, my teachers are not equipped. They didn't go to school for this. They do not understand how to work with teens that may be struggling with mental illness. And I thought that was quite interesting, and maybe it's something that the government can do to make sure that, and with the help of the foundation, we're always willing to help with this. Make sure that teachers have the information and education and are equipped with the resources to help students. I mean, I literally have heard that consistent thing with students and teachers alike and principals. So thank you for raising that. I think it's an important.
Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute also does a course. They do a course called Mental Health First Aid. You know how you can go to Bermuda Red Cross and learn first aid for physical ailments? Well, Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute also does a course called Mental Health First Aid, and it's a very, very, very good course. So if any of you are interested in that, or you want to share that with your teachers as well, that is available through Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute. I also share the sentiments of educators also learning more about mental health, because there are many real issues that occur in schools, such as we talked about mental illnesses or mental health concerns such as anxiety. How many of you freak out when you have a test? That was me. Or maybe you experience some level of depression, right? These are real issues. And I think I heard someone up here say, people just telling us to get over it, go study more. Some things you just can't get over so easily. And so we need understanding staff who understand anxiety, who understand depression, who understand stress and what impact that has on our bodies and how it makes us think, right? Or how it impacts our ability to focus. I think that was one of the questions that came up earlier about inability to focus. You need a clear mind so you can think clearly, correct? Yes? So I also agree with the sentiments of educators wanting to understand mental health, but they also themselves have to want it as well. And I think that, some people say, oh, that's not my job, we need to send it to a professional, but there are some very key things that educators can know about mental health. And so that's why I highly recommend the Mental Health First Aid course that is offered through the Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute.
And now I think we're at the point where I'm gonna open it up for some of the adults to speak. They have a few comments as well. So if you guys allow me, because this is the Teen Summit, I'm gonna open up to Miss Kathy here.
I just want to quickly address we've talked a lot about Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute. First of all, the division that deals with teens is called Child and Adolescent Services. So you won't hear MWI when people are talking about services for kids. You'll hear Child and Adolescent Services, okay? Second of all, the resources at Child and Adolescent Services are very limited. So you need to know that that's not the only place to go. Sometimes they are available like in a crisis, but they may not have the resources to provide some ongoing counseling that you might need. So there's some other things you should know. Many employers in Bermuda provide employee assistance programs to their employees. So the employee and any member of their household can use the counseling service for no fee. You really need to know that in terms of asking your parents if there is an employee assistance program, if you don't have adequate insurance. I mean, insurance does cover therapy, but you have to have the money to pay the copay. So they'll pay a portion of it, but you have to be able to afford the other portion, and many people cannot afford that. At a minimum, an absolute minimum, the copay might be $100. So you need to know and ask about employee assistance programs. All large companies in Bermuda government, Belco, BTC, all the large companies have it, and many, many small companies have it. So that's a resource available to you and your family where there's no fee attached. Okay, thanks.
Were there any other adults that had a comment towards this or would like to speak in general about some of the issues that the children raised today?
Perfect.
Thank you, Jody, and good afternoon, everyone, and Junior Minister. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invite, and just want to recognize my colleague, Justin. Life is much more difficult now than it was when I was growing up. I'm a little bit older than Jody, just a little bit. But when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, we didn't have cell phones. We went to school, and everything was pretty easy then. You did your studies, your bookwork wasn't that hard. You had some life experiences. But life has picked up pace in every decade since then. And that's not going to change. And that makes it more difficult for you, because when I was younger, if something happened serious in Bermuda, you'd hear about it in the school. You might hear about it when you got on the bus to go home, or you might hear about it when you were on playing. But nowadays, it's on your phone, and you probably each are on WhatsApp. So you get 50 WhatsApp messages where that incident is spreading. The pressure builds, the stress builds, because you probably know the person, and you don't know how to cope with it. You're trying to find out what's going on. And the body has to be in balance with all of these things. So your life is much more difficult than ours is. And so the old saying that no man is an island is so true, because we need to be able not only to share our experiences, but find an outlet for our experiences. Now, I've been blown away at just how much thought you put into what you've said. The comments have been unreal. Actually, Junior Minister, they should come to the House of Assembly and get involved in the debate, because they have more preparation than most of our colleagues do at all time. And so that's good. No, I say that in all seriousness. That's good, because this means that this is a real challenge for us in mental health. It's a real challenge. And if your body's not in balance, you're not going to be as productive as you want to be. Now, some people like to deal with their problems in their own way. Some people like to withdraw a little bit. But you need to, as friends, you need to identify when your friends have gone too far and there's something troubling. But one of the biggest issues we have in Bermuda, why do we have gang problems? Why do we have problems in our community? Why can't we solve some of those problems? Because we all understand some of the results and the consequences, but we say nothing. So it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to be quiet. And so if you see a friend who's slightly withdrawn, what's up, Justin? Talk to me. And he might just blow you off, but call him later. Reach out to them. When I was young, I was blessed because my mother and father and two sisters and a brother, they could read me like a book. And they knew when I messed up in school. My brother never pricked on me, but they knew when I messed up in school because I was acting different when I came home. And they made sure we had a conversation. And it wasn't always tough love. So you need to make sure you hold your colleagues accountable by talking to them about issues. Because the problems that you might have, or you might have, or you might have, somebody's had them before you. And they know how to deal with them. And if you don't deal with them, they're going to get worse. But pick your proper friends. We often talk in the House of Assembly about leadership and role models. But you got to be selective on the right people who are really earnest in helping you out. And so I feel very positive about what's going on in here today. The Bermuda Health Foundation, the work that they've done over the past 22, 23 years is good. But you guys hold the key yourself. If you make enough noise and talk to the right people, not only will you get the solutions to your problems, but you will build a stronger generation. And you're the future, not us. You guys are the future. So thank you for this today, and keep on discussing it, and reach out to some of the adults, the mature adults that you particularly don't feel comfortable with. The junior minister's here, she cares. Justin and I are here, we care. Reach out to those people, hold them accountable, because This island we love is yours in the future, and you need to be ready for it. And I feel you will be, so thank you. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Dunkley, I have a question for you. But how would we go about like getting our voice out? Because it's really hard. Like, which are the right people to talk to, and how do we get them to take us seriously?
Well, first off, I believe that most adults take young people seriously. The challenge is that because our world's so busy and we're so close to our cell phones all the time, we don't take the head off the cell phone and we don't see what's happening around us. And so, as I talked earlier about positive role models, you need to identify some of those people who you can talk to. It can be people in your school, it can be people in your community, anyone out there. And to be taken seriously, it just means to start the dialogue. And I'm sure that the junior minister would like to try to hold some more teen summits like this so we can have communications. I think a good way is let's have the young people in the room and get members of parliament and just have a conversation. Close the doors and just have conversations about things. One of my greatest joys is to go canvassing and talk with young people. Because when you get comfortable in your own surroundings, then you start to, I understand things, you get things off your chest, and you move forward. But your voice is important. Reach out. We're all on social media. Reach out to us. Let's have conversations. Happy to come back and talk to you and your classmates about things. Because, I've lived and learned. I've only been successful in some of the things I've done because I've had experiences that didn't turn out well. I've made a lot of the mistakes that you made. I've been through down times. I was in school away when my father died from a stroke 2 weeks after I left at Christmas. He was my hero. I go back to school after seeing him at Christmas, all happy, waiting to come home at Easter, and I get a call. I knew when that phone rang, we didn't have cell phones then, you had to go down to the basement of the dorm to answer the phone. And I knew when somebody answered the phone, they'd come running up the steps. Dunkley, Dunkley, Dunkley. I knew it was bad news. How did I know that? I hadn't spoke to anybody. Last time I talked to him was a week ago. He was fine. My hero was taken from me. I was depressed. But I was the oldest boy in the family. My mother was struggling. I was only 15. He was 40. And I had to act like I really wasn't. I had to act like I could cope with it. And I couldn't. And it took me a long time to get out of that. But I realized that there were people who loved me and cared for me and I could talk to. Because as a young man, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are like that, you like to keep your feelings to yourself because you want to be the man on campus, right? Trust me, that's not good. And, as life goes on, I've had moments where I just say, why me? Even when I was premier, some of those days were so lonely. But I had people, whether it was my wife, whether it was my brother, whether it was friends, I could call up at any time of day and night and just say, hey, I need your ear. Some nights I come back from the House of Assembly at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, just call a friend. Hey, I heard what was going on. Do you want to chat? That's what we have to do. You have to build that network. Your voice is important. Don't let somebody walk by you on the street and not listen to you. Your voice is important.
Also wanted to add, Judy, sorry, organization is key. When I studied away in school, I had the opportunity to be part of many organizations and groups, and we do have some local on island. One powerful tool, I remember being in the House of Assembly and we got this packet and it was from an organization and they had a whole wish list of things in which they wanted to see for our country. And I don't think there's enough of that. I don't think that people share enough of that. People will go on social media and they'll share with their concerns on social media. But groups and organizations coming together as groups, or even school organizations or councils that you have, sending information to every MP is very, very important, and something that you can do. Sometimes people think that your MPs are not approachable, but they are there, and don't be afraid to reach out to each and every one, because that is a powerful message in itself. Just going to just your one MP, go out to tell everybody your message and your story, and that's how we know that something is really wanted and supported in the island that we call our home, Bermuda.
I just want to kind of add to that because I know what it feels like to not have your voice heard at this age, and your voice is important. And Tanae is absolutely correct, and so is my friend over here, Ms. Dunkley. When I was your age, my aunt organized the opposite approach of this. She had adults in the audience, and she brought me as a teen, I think it must have been 15 at that time, and put me in the front, and the adults asked me questions that they couldn't ask their kids. And I thought it was this was years ago, it was an interesting assessment. So, I mean, you guys want to have your voices heard, and Tanae is she has a good point. Organization is key and critical. So if there's things that you see are going on in this country, or you want to get certain classes and educational things done, get with your teachers, document it, get it to the necessary people that can make those changes. And while social media is great, and again, I'm a social media guru, and I know every platform, and I run them from all my clients and all the other stuff, there's nothing more impactful in today's world. I do marketing for a living than word of mouth. It's still the number one way to get your point across. So the number one way is to talk and get your point across. So, but the point is talking to people that can make a difference. That's where we go wrong. You know, we talk to everyone and everyone else that cannot make a difference in our lives. So reaching out to faculty and staff, principals, if you don't feel like your teachers are listening, because I had a lot of teachers that I didn't think they would listen. It's funny because Ms. Packwood over here, raise your hand, Ms. Packwood. Ms. Packwood was my guidance counselor at Bermuda Institute when I went to Bermuda Institute. And she was one of the very few people that, in my life that, you guys may not know this, but I was a little rough kid. Like, I like to fight, and I was. But the one thing that Miss Packwood was able to do, because my parents went through divorce, I went through a lot of loss, I went through a lot when I was a little girl, and Miss Packwood was able to notice those signs, and she would always pull me to her office and be like, Jody, what is going on? That's not you. Let's work through this. What's going on at home? How is this? How is that? And that was very impactful in my life, to the point where I've had a whole career in mental health. So talking to the right people is the way you get your voice heard.
To me, this setting right here, what we're doing right now, is so touchful, because some people don't have an opportunity to voice their opinion like what we have given an opportunity to do. So I think this right here shouldn't just stop right here, because I think this is it's an amazing logo what they have. It's okay not to be okay. It has so much meaning behind it. So I don't think it should just stop right here at Cedarbridge Academy. I think it should progress forward. So like somebody said, I don't know who it was, about social media, put this on social media. It should go on TV, because some children, teens, like to relate to teens their age and their peers. So if we go on and progress this, maybe we'll see a different outcome on how our community is changing, not just in our community, worldwide, on problems.
I just wanted to follow up on a couple of points. One, that Mr. Dunkley said, you can ask someone, hey, are you okay? And they might blow you off, but call them again later. That's what you said. And it's interesting because there's a campaign in the UK. There's an organization called Time for Change, and it's a mental health advocacy organization. But they have just started a campaign called Ask Twice. And that's the reason. When you're asked once, it's easy to say, I'm fine. But go back and ask again, or make a phone call, or drop by and visit someone. Take that second step, and you may actually then allow that person to feel free to talk to you. The other thing I wanted to say was about what to do next, right? Within your schools even, you could start like a mental health education committee. You could do projects and bring in speakers and do things like that. And that's something you could do right now, because you already have a group that came here today. And you could use that group to be the beginnings of something that's operating within your school. There's a group called Active Minds, if anybody wants to look that up. It's for university, though, and it's student-led, and that's what they do. Active Minds puts out information, advocacy, connection for mental health resources in university-age students. So you can start now by going back and creating a committee that's going to be responsible for making a change in your school with mental health education. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? I thought this was a really transformative event, and I really wasn't going to say anything, but your question that you posed and the discussion that we had today really speaks to when we talk about voices and who to talk to, right? It's very important that in this room right now, that you guys all have a voice. Your voice is stronger individually. It's stronger when you come together and make a difference. And I just want to add to the point that you made just now, is that you have to go back into your schools. You've just had an amazing event. Just like you said, this shouldn't stop here, right? We should do this every year. We should do it quarterly. We should do this all the time. This slogan is something that we should go and put forth into our communities and say, this is what we want to happen. We want to be the agents of change. Just like the junior minister is here right now, she knows that change when it comes to parliamentary things can't happen tomorrow. It takes time. There's a process. And I believe that everyone's job here is, if you are an agent of change, if you want something to be productive, that you have to go back into your schools, you have to go back to your friend groups, and you really have to say, okay, we have a voice, we want to see a difference, what are we going to do? Because in the long term, yes, you go to the proper people, you take things through Parliament, you go to your guidance counselors, you go to your principals, you go to your parents, but there's things that you guys can do yourselves. You can start your own committee, you can start your own organizations, you can talk to your friends, you can get groups together, you can contact the junior minister and get her to come to events, you can contact other parliamentarians so that you feel that your voices are heard. So I think the most important thing about any event like this is to make sure that you take this event and you make something positive out of it. You take it from where it started and you make it into something better. So I encourage all of you, as someone who's the young adult in the room, I'm just 25. 10 years ago, I would have been sitting in a seat just like you. I went to MSA and my former guidance counselor is sitting in the back. And I went through a program called Dare to Care. And we went through something a little bit more similar in the sense that we talked about all the issues that were happening in our lives. And I went to MSA, you've gone to MSA, there's other MSA students here. I went through MSA since kindergarten, and we did this program in grade 10. Now that is 10 years of being with the same people year after year, spending 9 months and spending summer times with individuals that you feel are your best friends, individuals that you feel that you know just as good as their parents, just as good as their cousins, because you have lived 8 hours every day, Monday through Friday with them. But there are still things within their lives that you just don't know. And to go through that process when I was younger, and to see that some of my best friends who I talk to on the phone, we text, you think you know everything about somebody, you think you know everything about their situation, but you just don't know until you have sessions like this. And the most important thing is understanding one another. We have to become a community that understands one another. We have to constantly be putting ourselves in other people's shoes. That's the only way that we can get anything done in our society. If we want positive change, if we want to become a better society, we have to understand what everyone else's individual things are. You know, we talked about it today here and said, well, everybody's different. Yes, everybody is different, they're unique. But you have to have a level of understanding of what somebody else's uniqueness is to help them, right? And that's the most important thing that you can do, is constantly put yourself in other people's shoes, and don't be afraid, like you said, right? Don't be afraid to lose a friend. Don't be afraid to stand up for something that you believe is right. If you feel that somebody is going through a tough patch and you feel as a good friend in the definition of what a good friend is, and you feel that you need to speak up and you need to address the situation with that friend, do not be afraid to lose a friend, but don't be afraid to be a friend. And I think that's the most important thing that we could learn here today. And I encourage all of you to go back to your schools and be those agents of change to see the world that you guys want to see. So I want to thank Jody for hosting this amazing event. And I want to thank you all for giving every one of us, including the adults in the room, your experience and what's going on. Even though this is a brief event, even though this was only 2 hours, this is transformative in the sense that you guys can take this event and turn it into something that's bigger. So I want to thank you all today for being part of that change.
Okay. Everyone's minds and hearts are clear, as they say in church. Y'all go to church? I haven't been in a long time. Okay, so with that said, we're slated to go to 3:30, but I want to give us an opportunity to have little conversations amongst ourselves. So I'm going to wrap up, but you guys can, remain and talk with some of the adults in the rooms, ask some questions that you didn't want to ask in public. I just have a quick question because I find this is very, I would say, my kids may say otherwise if you get them in front of people, but I'm a pretty cool mom. I would like to conclude that I'm pretty dope, right? Right. Thank you. I think I'm pretty dope. And it's interesting because my daughter, who is 14, so she's a little younger than you guys. My oldest is 14, my youngest is 10. And I find it interesting because my children literally talk to me about everything. And I praise I give myself a pat in the back because I don't have a child that needs to run to whomever, her friends or whatever, to speak about certain things. So at the age of 14, my daughter is comfortable with talking to me about the boy that likes her, the one that's doing this, the friend that's 14 having sex. We have these conversations. We have very open conversations. She's not scared to tell me the things that are going on at school and the like. And what I find interesting is that she tells her friends will be like, oh, you talk to your mom about that? And it's always very interesting to her because she's like, yeah, why would you not talk to your parents about these things? And none of her friends actually talk to their parents about the things that they're going through. And it actually hurts to the point where I'm going to be speaking. My children go to school in Georgia. To be speaking about this topic in Atlanta, I find too many students, too many young people do not rely on their parents. And not every parent can be as cool as me, but but it's important. I just want to know by a show of hand, who feels comfortable with speaking to their parents on topics that are affecting you? Certain extent? Okay. Now, of the people that did not raise your hand, do you believe that you have at least 3 people in your life that you can go and speak to when there are things that you're dealing with? Does everyone feel like they have somebody? Yes? I'm not going to actually do it now, but if you, in your mind, because sometimes we shake our head yes, and like Kathy said, you got to ask twice. In your mind, if you legit do not have someone that you feel comfortable with, okay, I want you to just stay behind and pull either myself or Miss Kathy, my friend in the back here from Mid-Atlantic, just pull us to the side, let us know. And I would like to help you get some resources, okay? I don't want anyone to leave here today without having the resources that they need to make it through this thing we call life. Because it doesn't get easier, trust me. Anyone want some bills? Because that stressed me out. So it doesn't get easier. So I want you to leave today with the resources that you need, okay? So this is my closing. On behalf of the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation, we have our chairman back there. I would like to thank you guys for participating today. You get to keep these amazing t-shirts, and hopefully you will wear them and spread this message of hope and the fact that it is okay not to be okay. I want to thank my junior minister, Tanae Ferbert. I don't want to thank my amazing panel. Let's give these guys a round of applause. I want to thank my solution team here that blew me away. And I want to once again thank all of you for coming, and we're going to be hanging around for a little while longer, so thank you guys so much. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We are wrapping up, but I'm just really rare with pictures. So if we can get like everyone just with a t-shirt on, just come up this area, we're just going to have a big picture of everything.
Body gooder than good. Bala bougie, she can't ring and good up. She can shake that patio. Hot like the summer. Shorty, I can cool you down like the winter. Oh gosh, what a bumper. Gotta post a pic on my Insta. Shorty wine and go down there. Waste no time when she roll there. Shorty rolling up the thing looking at me. Important head like holidays. I don't know what you do to me. When you wine I'm going crazy. Come over here my baby. Oh, girl, keep that body bouncing. Booty roll like a dumpling.